let's have a look at the pelvis. I would say that this is a male pelvis. So men's pelvis are a lot narrower than women's pelvis. And for very good reason. Women are designed to bear children, and so our pelvis needs to be much wider to allow for that load bearing experience, but also to obviously be able to give birth. So this would be a male pelvis. With that in mind, just while I'm on that topic, because of the two different shapes or slightly different shapes of pelvis, it does tend to mean that when we see men with back pain, their back pain tends to be at around about L3, L4. So remember, if this is the sacrum, so S1 and L5, and then it's going to go L4, L3, L2, L1 like that. So men tend to have spinal problems around about L3, L4, simply because that is where the load ends up in their movement, because their pelvis is narrow. Compared to women, it's very common for women to have issues around the level of the sacrum. So whether it's in this joint here, which is the sacroiliac joint, do you see where the yellow part is the sacrum and the whiter part or the bone colored part is the actual pelvis? Women tend to get pain either within those joints of the sacrum or L5 and L4, so pretty low down. And that's simply because the weight distribution is much wider due to the wider pelvis. It's also potentially because women menstruate, every time women menstruate and every time that women give birth, these ligaments within these joints of the sacroiliac joint, they become a little bit lax, and if women don't have enough muscle strength to keep everything nice and close together, then that laxity can become quite uncomfortable. So just food for thought. But let's go back and have a look at the bones of the pelvis. So there's 3 bones in the pelvis, 2 very big bones and 1 not so big bone. Remember, this is actually part of the vertebra, the sacrum. So it is comprised of 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 bones, but they've been fused together, and this little tailbone. And also these 2 big bones are called the ilium. So ilium, and sacrum. Now these guys have a little bit of movement in them. They need to have a little bit of movement, but ultimately they also need very good stability as well. So all of our core muscles are structured within these bones. The movement that these bones have is, as I move my leg forwards, there's a little bit of rotation of the pelvis on one side and stability on the other side. Rotation and stability. Then I move my other leg forwards, rotation and stability. If there's too much of that, then there's too much of this going on, right? But ultimately, by working all of the muscles of the deep core and the muscles of the glutes, this is where our glute muscles connect, then that's going to help stabilize and support the pelvis. You can see these big holes here, that's actually where the very top of the leg inserts into the pelvis, and this little part here is also a joint that's called the pubic symphysis joint. So that's what comprises those 3 bones, right? So ilium, sacrum. This is known as the iliac crest, right? Or the very top of the iliac. These 2 little points at the front, if you go ahead and put your fingers on the very front of your pelvis here, that's your ASIS, anterior superior iliac spine. I call them headlights. So when I get people to touch them on their own body, I just say your headlights. So if you're laying on your back, your headlights would be facing the ceiling. Then this would be your pubic bone. At the bottom, ischial tuberosities or sits bones, your sits bones. So you're sitting on your sits bones. You can rock forwards and backwards on the sits bones. If you're laying on your back, your sits bones are nice and wide and open, right? So everything does move a little bit, but ultimately we're looking for good stability of the pelvis in movement. I hope that that helps give you a better understanding of what the pelvic bones look like and how they function.